Hey guys, welcome to a live question and answer session with myself, RJ Bates III. I wanted to do something fun, a little bit different to start off the new year, a way for you guys to interact and be able to answer any of y'all's questions that you have. I've been getting quite a few questions in both my DMs on Facebook and Instagram about different videos that I've done, either whether it be around, how I talk to sellers, some of the lives that I've done with the Speed to Lead show and Batch TV about how we're getting contracts signed. So I've added in a couple of videos for that, but I just want to come in and be able to answer any questions that you guys have and really kind of have a little bit of an unstructured format because typically the majority of my videos are very structured. So this allows me to just kind of come in here and hang out with you guys and answer any questions. So appreciate you guys showing up, and hopefully we'll have a interactive video here today. Someone says you look majestic as fuck, bro. Well, if the comments continue like that, it should be a very interesting episode. So there you go. Mr. Garvin Thomas, Happy New Year to you, Garvin. What's up, Paul? Joshua Jones, what's going on, my friend? But see, Joshua's coming in here with the Arizona Cardinals logo, and I'm a little bit salty with the Cardinals coming in and beating the Cowboys this weekend. Use cases like polling or customer service or marketing, or which one works better? What is the best way to really connect with a seller? Okay, I think that's the question. I think I could definitely answer that one. What's the best way to connect with a seller? Well, for us, I'll tell you what our marketing flow is. We pull our list within batch leads, and then we start off, we skip trace through batch, and then we do SMS marketing. Then we import that into batch dialer and we do cold calling. Then we come back, we do more SMS, and then we do cold calling again. So it's pretty much always text, call, is the way that I like to say it. But I mean, listen, all of the different ways out there work. I mean, direct mail works as well. It's just about being consistent with whatever you decide you're going to do marketing wise. I just personally, for me, I like texting and cold calling because I feel like they're what puts you most in control, and as well as being cost effective as well. Joshua Jones says that contract video you did yesterday was dope. I appreciate that, Joshua. That was actually requested by a subscriber. He specifically wanted me to do that video because he watched me on the Speed to Lead show and saw me get contract signed, and he wanted to know, hey, how are you able to send the contract off to the seller, get it, all filled out, put in the DocuSign, and get it signed so quickly? So I appreciate that. And if you guys have any more specific questions like that, feel free to just drop them in the comments, and I'll see the best I can do. Mr. Kenneth Cotterman, thank you for doing the Q&A. I look forward to more from the Facebook user. Oh, man. Paul says, how many texts or leads to get a deal? So nationwide average is 2,500 initial text messages to a contract. And that's been pretty consistent since the 50-50-50 challenge. That was a number and a KPI that we developed back then. And you would think that it would change over the course of the past 18 months, but it really hasn't. It's stayed pretty consistent, 2,500 initial texts to a contract. Can we get a link for the contract from yesterday? Yes. I'm developing on getting that for you guys. It was a little bit more cumbersome than I thought it was going to be, but yeah, that should be out here in the next day or so. If you had to choose between text message marketing and cold call marketing, which one do you feel you're best at? Well, between those two, I'm going to say I'll do texting because I can communicate to more people per day through text messages than I can through cold calling. It's just a purely a numbers game at that point. I can send out more text daily, hourly, and minute by minute than I can cold calls. And the texting is going to generate incoming phone calls for me to have the ability to also talk to sellers. So if I have to choose between the two, I'm going to pick SMS every day of the week. When you call, do you double or triple dial that number? No, only when it's like an inbound lead, something that came to our website, or like a PPC lead or something like that. Or if it's someone that I was having a conversation with and they hung up on me, those would be the only times that I'm going to do something like that. Majority of the time, it's just going to be a single dial and just leave a voicemail. What size list are you pulling, and are they niche lists? So, Kenny, I actually have a specific video on my YouTube channel, which is where you're watching right now, about how I pull my list. It's the same way I pull my list every single time. They're not really niche lists. They are stacked, where it includes different motivating factors like vacants, tax defaults, liens, pre-foreclosures, inherited, expired listings, unknown equity. It's going to include all of that. The size of the list is really going to be dependent upon the location, because I'm going to search a specific city. So, for example, if I picked Chicago, Illinois, that's going to be a lot larger of a list than if I pull Longview, Texas. And so that's going to decide. An ideal size for a list is going to be somewhere in that range of 2,500 to 4,000 records. And again, that just goes back to the nationwide average of 2,500 initial text messages equals a contract. So if I'm pulling a list that size, then I can pretty much know numbers and average wise that should equal at least a contract. Hey, RJ, when comping a property that is the oldest in the neighborhood, how do you proceed estimating the ARV? Example, subject property built in 1978. Other houses built around 1990 and up. So I'm going to try to stick to the comps that are the 1990 and try to avoid anything that's 2000 or newer. And then I might just discount it by, say, 10 or 15% for being older. But that's just one of those kind of weird, awkward situations that if your subject property is in an outlier situation because it is older, there's not a whole lot you can do other than just discount it by a percentage of some sort. And in this circumstance, if you do have 1990s, that's only a 12-year gap. It's not a huge difference. You do also want to make sure that they're the same style house, they, brick or siding, make sure they're the same style there. But more often than not, just putting some kind of discount for it being older is the best case. The use cases question is referring to when you register your campaign. I mean, what are y'all choosing to say it's for? Okay, so when you're registering for the 10 DLC, okay, I can't remember what the options were they gave you because I only did it that once. I believe it was marketing, and then it could have been customer service. I'm not exactly sure. But I after going through the whole process, I don't think that it really matters that much. So just don't overthink it. Just go through and fill it out. But yeah, definitely use marketing for the one choice. This is the man right here, Mr. Flores. He was the person that asked for that contract video specifically in the comments. So appreciate you for requesting that, and it seems like it really helped a lot of people out. Paul says I'm sending 1,000 SMS a day and get about one lead. There you go. And again, it's gonna those numbers are nationwide numbers that I was talking about with SMS. So remember, you're gonna get different numbers depending on what market you're in, right? We get different numbers in, like, say, a Little Rock, Arkansas, Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Cedar Rapids, Iowa, than we do if we go to some hotter larger market that's more saturated, like in Atlanta, Georgia, or a Charlotte, North Carolina, or Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, those numbers are gonna be skewed and changed. That's just a nationwide average for us. Joey says, what is the Viking Wizards day-to-day routine, and how do I grow my beard like that? Growing the beard's pretty easy. You just stop shaving. That's what works for me. There is a routine though. You got to buy the brushes, and you gotta put the oils and all that shit in there. So there is a little bit of routine. Day to day, I'm a creature of habit though. So I do have a lot of things that I do routine wise. For me, I have the same routine when I wake up in the morning. I'm the kind of person that I love to wake up and immediately get ready for the day. So I'm the kind of person that rolls out of bed and immediately goes straight to the shower, get ready in the morning. I feel refreshed, get dressed. I eat my breakfast. I sit down, and I had the same little routine that I do at my desk here as far as what tabs I have open. So I've got my emails open. I've got DocuSign open. I've got our CRM open. I've got batch leads. I've got batch dialer. Typically, I'll have something up for the YouTube and social media stuff, and just kind of monitor what's happening across the board. Take a look at what's happening KPI wise with our wholesale operations, and just manage thing on top of what's happening within my business. And that's kind of the best way I put it. For me, we have a lot of different moving parts within our business. So it's very important for me to keep a close eye on everything that's happening, because otherwise, if I don't, I'm going to be letting someone down within the business. Having habits and developing those and just doing the same thing day in and day out can seem kind of boring to some people, but for me, it's my happy place, and it's where I know I'm not letting anybody down. There are different days of the week where I have to do different things. So, for example, Friday is where we handle the cash flow report. I say that I totally skipped this last Friday, but more. 51 weeks out of the year, Fridays when we do the cash flow report, we make sure everything gets paid. And so that's a big part of my Friday. But it's just about organizing yourself and making sure you're developing those positive habits. Let's see. How do you handle sellers who are scared of the TREC contract? I've had problems closing sellers using the Texas Purchase Agreement. Well, in that circumstance, if you are using the TREC contract, I would just say, look, this is the state promulgated contract. This is what anyone that does the real estate transaction, this is the contract that they use. You can find it by just searching TREC contract. It's right there. It clearly shows that it's the state promulgated contract. If they do have a problem with it, then that's when I would go and I would use our more simple 2-page agreement that just outlines a very simple purchase and sell agreement, and say, listen, we can use this contract as well. That's the contract that I showcased in my contract video. And then ask the questions like, what is scaring you about the TREC contract? Because it is yes, it's 8 pages long. But it's a pretty simple contract. So what about it is scaring you, and what about this transaction is alerting you to not want to sign? And just walk them through that. That's why it's important to send the contract while you're live on the phone with them. If you're closing over the phone, if you're in person, that's even better, where you can walk them through each aspect of the contract. Just make sure that you've done your own due diligence and you know how to fully explain each one of those sections. Mario says, do you send your deals out to your buyer before you get pictures, or it's a must to send after you get pictures? Well, that's funny that you asked that, Mario, because listen, Cassie wants us to get pictures before we send properties out. Some of the guys here that do dispositions for us, they feel the same way. I'm a little bit more of the rule breaker, and like, listen, if I know I got a deal and I know I got the right buyer, I'm gonna pick the phone up and say, hey, look, I just picked up this hot property. It's in your neck of the woods. I know you want it. You just want to go out and you see it. You can go see it right now. I don't have pictures of it. But the other thing is that you can ask the seller to send you pictures. More often than not, they have pictures that they can send you. So I think in your circumstance, Mario, I think it's very important because you are doing the vast majority of the work yourself for your company, that you just develop a routine where you're probably not going to send a property out without pictures. You probably just need to sit there and make it a part of your habits where you are getting the pictures first and then you're sending the property out. That's probably the best case scenario for you, instead of being stubborn like me and trying to get it sold without, because you don't want to backtrack. And really the only reason why I do that is because I know I have my team behind me that can come fill in the gaps if I'm not successful with selling it. So I would say for you specifically, probably get the pictures first. Wanted to ask how the deal went for the 700,000 compound deal. So we're still working on the deal. He was not going to get foreclosed on. We opened up title. He was concerned that he was going to get foreclosed on by the end of the year. He was not. And so we've got that resolved. And so now we have, I don't know, 5 or 6 different buyers that are interested in the property. It's once he kind of realized he had more time, he kind of relaxed, wanted to enjoy the holidays. So it's been a little bit of a slower process, but that's because he's not as worried as he was live on the call. Claudio, what's up, man? Thank you for moving the industry forward. You're welcome. What's your thoughts on PPC leads versus SMS leads in terms of cost, motivation, acquisitions, disposition? Can't wait to see what levels you take it to this year. Well, I appreciate that. This is interesting. I appreciate you asking me this, because obviously now I've kind of come out and been doing the PPC shows with Speed to Lead and had success with those, right? We've done 3 of the lives. On all 3 of the lives, I've gotten contracts signed live right there. And Claudio, you watched a lot of my 50-50-50 and batch TV episodes where not always the case, right? You're not always going to, well, there's a difference in level of motivation. Okay, so let's start with motivation. PPC leads, they've already told us they've taken the action to go to our website and say, I want to sell my house. So of course you're going to get a higher level of motivation with PPC than you are with SMS on the vast majority of the people that you talk to. Because in SMS, you're going to get the people that are like, what are you talking about? My property is not vacant. I've already solved the tax default or the pre-foreclosure situation. No, I don't want to sell. Why are you trying to take my property? All of that BS, right? You don't get that with PPC. Now, cost-wise, PPC is going to be much higher than SMS. I would say, especially if you're trying to manage your PPC campaigns yourself, that's where it could get extremely expensive. Because listen, that's a whole talent in and of itself, right? That's why I love working with the Speed to Lead team. And really the only reason why we even started doing it is because Gene Blinkoff reached out to us and asked us to be basically his puppets for the Speed to Lead program. So we were like the first person that were getting these leads. And listen, we wasted a lot of time early on with the mobile homes in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming, and the vacant lots that are just swamplands and all of that. He's really tweaked it and dialed it in to get it to where it is today. So from a cost perspective, PPC is a lot higher. But from a closing conversion rate, you're going to be able to close a lot more deals with PPC than you are with SMS. But listen, this is the argument also between inbound marketing and outbound marketing. And I would never want to put ourselves in the position of just sitting here and waiting on inbound PPC leads and not be proactively taking the action of the outbound SMS and cold calling. I think it's healthy for a business to have a blend of both. And so for me, yeah, I mean, if you had to tell me, hey, RJ, you can only close one, which one are you going to prefer? I'm going to prefer the inbound PPC lead than I am the outbound SMS lead. But it's going to cost me more. But at the end of the day, I think you need a healthy blend of both. All right. Someone says, how come my questions are not going through? Unfortunately, this one did, but you shot your shot on asking me that question. So there's your answer. It did come through. Keep firing away, though. Paul says, how many times do you hit your SMS campaigns? So we're going to continue to hit them over and over and over again. We will hit them up front, and then we'll cold call them, and then we'll hit them again from a nationwide perspective based off the motivation. So we'll do nationwide pre-foreclosures, nationwide bankruptcies, nationwide vacant, and then we'll cold call that list, and then we'll come back, and then we'll hit that location again. So, for example, tomorrow on Batch TV, I'll be doing a Washington State campaign. We'll hit new data in Washington State as well as all of our previously skip trace data in Washington State again. So we'll just keep hitting it over and over and over again. And part of the thought process there is that we're going to be hitting them from new phone numbers. So they're not going to know that it's us, the same person that hit them 3 months ago. So we're just going to keep hitting them. And we've seen great success with that. Can you recommend any hard or private money lenders for flips? I don't know what location you're in, Joshua. I'm assuming Arizona. Clear Funds is a really good one in Arizona that we've previously used. And then also Lending Home and Lending One are good nationwide lenders that give you really good terms as long as you've got the credit score to do flips. Michael Hopkins says, do you test/vary your list pulling technique to optimize results, or do you stick with the recipe you put out in your list pulling video? I would say 95% of the time, Michael, it's going to be the exact same way I put out that video. And the reason why is because there's not really a need to change it because we're hitting the different motivating criteria across the board, right? The vacant, the tax defaults, the pre-foreclosures, all of that is in that list pulling ability. I would say every now and then I'll test things out and I'll try something different. I did that in Oregon one time. I added a single parent filter on top. We'll also do the same thing with divorce every now and then, which is one of the other filters inside of batch leads. But for us, for the most part, we're going to stick to that recipe. What's the best approach to buying property with a tenant who hasn't paid in 8 months? Owner willing to sell at a deep discount due to eviction ban still in place? Well, this is a great question because this is where I would start picking up the phone and calling my VIP or go-to buyers. And I would ask them, like, listen, you're a buyer right now. You're looking to buy properties at a steep discount in New Jersey. How deep of a discount do I need to get this at? What's your thought process with a tenant who's not paying, hasn't paid in 8 months? Because the real question that's going to have to be there for your buyer is how much holding cost are they going to have to basically waste until they can eventually get that tenant out of there? And really that's kind of an unknown question, right? We don't know when that eviction ban is going to be up. They keep extending it in different locations, and there's different government entities that are making those decisions, whether it be the state level or the federal government. And so that's where I would have those questions. And I think they're going to be better suited to answer that, as well as basically give you the decision on whether or not you should contract that property or not. Because even though that seller might be willing to sell it at an extremely steep discount, it might not be enough for your buyer to pull the trigger. Samuel, I'm going to work on getting that contract and create a link for you guys to be able to download it. Hopefully we should have that the next day or so. How is your business structure set up? How many acquisitions, agents, dispo agents, etc.? Do you have VAs, or are you still personally cold calling daily? No, I don't cold call. We do have VAs. We have 4 VAs that cold call for us. And as far as acquisitions goes, we've got Justin, we've got Royce, Robert, we've got Cruz, we've got Karan, and then we've got Patrick. So right now we've got a team of 6 that are doing acquisitions and dispositions for us. And then we've got Brittany, who's an administrative assistant. And then we've got myself, Elijah, and Cassie, who are the owners. And we have different things that we do as far as for just the overall health of the business. So that's our team structure right now. I would say the acquisitions and dispositions is always changing, unfortunately, because those are commission positions. So we've had some turnover there over the past 12 months, but that's to be expected just based off of those positions. Jorge says, I notice you don't engage much with prospects. Is that good all the time? Not sure what you mean by that. Do you mean that I'm quick and to the point? I mean, yeah, probably. My objective is early on in the conversation to find out, do you want to sell your property, and do you have an asking price, and get someone to throw an anchor in the water of pricing, so I know I'm not wasting my time. Do I think that's good? Yeah, because if I didn't know, I wouldn't be doing it that way. And I think we have the results to back that up as well. Diamond, I answered that question earlier. We're still working on it. He's not getting foreclosed on, and we've got probably 5 or 6 interested buyers. What's up, RJ? I was currently listening to one of Steve Trang's podcasts, saw a notification that you were live. Now I'm here. Oh, well, I appreciate you leaving Steve's podcast to come over here. Let me know if you got any questions. Love to answer those for you. How do you structure an out-of-state deal with no boots or network on the ground? For example, a new state. Do you partner with a real estate agent? If so, what agreement do you send and what do you pay them? So, yeah, I don't know if you can hear Patrick in the background. He said you need the crucible. So that's, yeah, this is our whole business right here. I mean, we're always getting deals in new locations. Especially with adding PPC. I mean, we're getting leads and locations that we've never even heard of before. But as far as boots on the ground, it doesn't have to be a real estate agent. It can be. A lot of times we're just hiring photographers to go out, or asking the sellers or asking buyers to take pictures for us. But we really just don't overthink this part of it. It's hilarious to me. This is probably the question that I get asked more than anything. And it cracks me up. And I'm not giving you a hard time. I don't know who you are because it doesn't give a name. But and I'm not making fun of you, because I get it, because I used to be just like you and ask this question until I started doing it. Then I realized, like, listen, this is not as complicated as it needs to be. Like, if we just get a good deal, we could get pictures taken pretty easy. The way that we pull lists, we get a lot of vacant properties. That's like the number one name that we add to our list is vacant properties. And so getting a lot box put on and just being able to send our buyers out there is pretty common. And it doesn't have to be as complicated as you make it out to be, honestly. Robin, where can we get your 2-page filled? There's going to be a link for this. So it's going to be out there the next day or so, Robin. Let's see. Do you go after deals with non-paying tenants who aren't cooperative? Is this the same question that I answered earlier? Yeah, this is. All right, some of y'all are just asking the same question. I'm getting all the questions. I promise you. You don't have to ask them multiple times. All right, how do you get boots on the ground on a virtual market if the property is tenant occupied or owner occupied? Do you have someone present when the cash buyer goes to see the property? Well, if it's a trusted cash buyer, then we don't need to do that. So if it's someone that you've done business with in the past and that you trust, you can just send them out there. They could be your trusted boots on the ground. If it isn't, then yeah, you might need to get someone. You might need to JV the deal. You might need to get a real estate agent to go out there and show the property. But honestly, more often than not, this is not as big of a problem as you would think it's going to be, Muhammad. Let's see. What are your goals this year? My goals. So Matt, I'm actually still working on my goals for this year. This hair over here is driving me crazy. Right. It's a problem when you wear all black and you have an all white dog. What is your goals for this year, Matt? I'm actually still developing some of those. I have different ones from a wholesaling perspective, from a crucible perspective, and then also from the brand building perspective. Just a couple of ones that I can just 100% tell you is I do want to win the Closers Olympics again. I want to defend my crown. That's something that I want to do. I want to also bring forth more content in regards to talking to sellers. I think that's a talent that I have. So you're going to see a lot more lives and videos of me talking to sellers and bringing other people in where they also talk to more sellers and just showcasing the importance of that in our business. From a wholesaling perspective, we're going to lay out some specific goals on the amount of deals that we want to do and reverse engineer that to what the revenue looks like. And that's something that I'm currently developing. But Matt, that's a really good question. And I think there'll probably be a video about that coming out pretty soon. So I appreciate that. Mario says, can you give an example how you tell the seller that you need a price reduction because the repairs are too much? Yeah, I think this goes back to how the acquisitions took place, though. Did you dive deep when you made your offer? Did you already find out a lot of the information? Or did you maintain that leverage by keeping the conversation vague, which is why we want to ask, is it in ugly or scary or good or perfect condition? More often than not, they're going to say it's in good condition. If they say it's in good condition, that kind of gives you the opportunity to come back and say, hey, look, you said it was in good condition, but it wasn't. The roof needs to be replaced, the HVAC needs to be replaced, or whatever. And then you use very specific and you break it down in like a mathematical equation, Mario. I mean, you can start sitting there talking to them about, listen, I base this off of 25,000 in repairs. Now that we've gone out, we've done our inspection, it's going to be more like $35,000 in repairs. That's why I need to get a $10,000 to $12,000 price reduction, and just break it down and make it as unemotional as possible, which can be difficult, which is why I always say the list pulling side of things is the foundation of your business. Vacant properties, non-owner occupied sellers are going to be much less emotional about this experience than, say, the landlord or someone that inherited a property or something along those lines, where this could be a much more logical conversation than an emotional experience where you're just breaking it down and talking to them more about numbers and less about the feelings. Let's see. Can you do an SMS course? Well, I think we have that. It's right down there at the bottom. It's titaniumcrucible.com. We definitely go over SMS marketing at the Crucible, as well as I've got probably close to 100 videos of me doing SMS marketing on YouTube live, John. So that's the free stuff that you could get. And then as well as just attending the Crucible. So if you don't know what the Crucible is, John, just check it out, titaniumcrucible.com. Kitty says we have buyers and our buyers in Western Washington. Excellent. Well, hopefully I can get something there tomorrow. Make sure to tune in. It'll be probably 9 o'clock y'all's time. I'll be going live on Batch TV. Nigeria says I was going to go back, excuse me, and offer the guy $700K. I feel better now. You left that out. You left out that my phone died, by the way. I didn't know. Nigeria. I didn't know that you actually talked to that guy. Somebody told me during the live that you talked to him. I didn't actually see it, bud. Question. Got 20 acres under contract. You know any developers in San Diego wanting to convert to a trailer park and subdivide the rest? Yes. Yes, us. You need to reach out to Patrick Brown. Patrick at titanium.investments. There is no .com, but yes, this is what his family does. So we could definitely be your buyer. All right. Do I train our VAs or is Andrea handling that? I have not trained them on anything. Andrea trained them on everything that we do. Claudio, how do you feel about locking up agreements in small population towns in the middle of nowhere? Do you prefer to find a buyer before locking up or lock it up and figure it out later? So we definitely lock things up before we find the buyers. We're not gonna take the time and effort and energy to try to go find the buyer before we have a property under contract. I would say for us, the deciding factor is going to be how many properties have sold in, say, the past 6 months. Is there movement going on even despite the size of the population? And do we see movement in the comps with investors? Like, do we see, hey, this property was bought cheap and then flipped? Do we see rental properties going on there? Is there movement within the investment world? If there is, then we'll take the chance. Now, look, there's also certain places where, you're going to look at it and it's just a population of like 1,000 or something like that. I mean, that there's got to be a line where you just draw and say, this is not for us, right? I'd rather have no deal than a bad deal. We don't want to waste too much of our time. So I'm guilty of having the team lock up deals in small locations and regretting it. But that would be the thought process is trying to figure out if there's investors that are active in the area before we lock it up. We do use PropStream. We mainly use PropStream for comps. We do use it for a little bit of list pulling, but I would say probably less than 5% of the lists we pull come from PropStream. The vast majority of what we use it for is for pulling comps. All right. Let's see. I have a seller. She wants to sell. She wants $100K, but she wants to list it on the market even if I offered $100K because she feels she could get more. She feels she has to put it. How do I solve this? Well, I think that's the problem is you're not figuring out what her problem is. Like, this is too much numbers based about she wants $100K, but she wants to list it because she feels like she can get more than $100K. And even if she does get more than $100K listing it on the MLS, it doesn't mean she's netting more than $100K because you're going to have the realtor commissions. When you list the property, more often than not, you are now going to be the seller would be paying the closing cost. So I would communicate those numbers to her, and then I would also ask, try to figure out what are the pain points, what's the motivation for wanting to sell, and really dig deeper. And then at some point in time, you have to draw a line in the sand and say, this is my offer. This is how I'm willing to solve your problem. Take it or leave it. But yeah, I would. And then I would also, I mean, can she get more than $100K? And if so, what is that number that she's looking for? I mean, what is it specifically? All right, Kip says, can you go after property that is involved in a foreclosure court before it goes to the bank? As long as they have not already foreclosed on it, then yes, you can absolutely stop it. If they've already foreclosed on it, then no, there's nothing that can be done. Have you ever pulled a city code violation list directly from the city website? And would you recommend it as a side niche to get leads outside of pulling from batch or prop stream? Yes, we have done that. I do think it can be effective. I do also think that it can be time consuming, and you can also kind of go down the rabbit trail of trying to get that information. Some cities are a little bit more difficult to get it from than others. Some of the cities here, specifically in DFW, it is a little bit difficult to get that information. But yeah, we've definitely done it. I wouldn't say that we had some much higher results from doing that than we do from pulling lists from batch and prop stream, though. So it's kind of something that we used to do when we were trying to figure out our way, but now that we figured out our way, we stick to what we're good at. And we're just not searching for those unicorns anymore. When you buy a house subject to, the seller can take another loan from the bank. Thanks. So this is going to depend on a couple different things. So, for example, if it's a VA loan, okay, I learned this from one that we just did probably about a year ago. It's going to depend on how many. I can't remember the right verbiage for it, but basically how many points they have with the VA. Because they've already allotted a certain amount to that one, and then they're only allowed a certain amount of loans that they can get. And then there's going to be situations where because that loan is still under their name, it's going to depend on what their debt to income ratio is, because they're still essentially having to say that that's under their name. And so, yeah, it could hinder them from being able to get another loan. There are situations where no, that won't be the case, but yes, it can hurt them and hinder them from getting another loan. What effect does a mechanic's lien have on a deal? Is it irrelevant and the seller pays it off at closing? That could be one of the solutions, is yes. The mechanic's lien is just resolved at title and paid off. You could also have, reach out and have the lien removed without payment if it's there for a reason that may have already been resolved, or maybe they're just ready to move on from it. But more often than not, it's just going to get resolved, and the payoff needs to be sent to title and paid there. All right. I'm not sure if a lien on a property has any effect on a deal. Can you please explain if a lien matters to us as a buyer? Well, it does, especially if it's going to impact what the net proceeds are to the seller, as well as what they're expecting to receive, right? So, for example, say you're in a situation where first lien, the mortgage, is 100,000, and they say, "Hey, I'm willing to sell it for 100,000 just to pay off my mortgage." But then there's a $10,000 mechanic's lien. They're probably not going to want to write a check for $10,000 to pay off that mechanic's lien, so it can impact the deal. We actually just ran into this situation with a deal in Philadelphia, which is the seller thought he was going to be walking away with about $15,000 in his pocket. But after several judgments and other lien payoffs came back, he was actually going to have to write a check for $11,000 at closing, but he doesn't have $11,000. And so he didn't realize that his payoffs were as much as they were. And so there was nothing that we could do other than we had to increase the price by $11,000. And it basically just came out of our wholesale fee. That was the only way that we could solve that problem. So, yeah, it can absolutely impact the deal. Let's see. I told her all of that, and she still said she wants to list it. It's in terrible condition, and it was inherited. She said it'll be dumb to take the first offer. How exactly would I tackle this issue? Well, look, this is kind of one of those situations where when someone inherits a property, and I mean, she's kind of speaking logically, I mean, uh, wouldn't it be dumb to take the first offer? Probably. Um, Sometimes not every deal is going to be, you're not going to be the best solution, and you're not going to be able to close every deal. So if you walked her through the situation, you explained her what you could do, and you explained how you're the best solution for her. If she's not willing to accept that, then that's okay. Don't get so wrapped up on that one deal. Just put her in follow up and stay in good communication with her. You don't have to land every deal. And from this circumstance right here, this sounds like someone that just inherited a property and is probably thinking to themselves, like, look, I'll talk to a couple of investors, but I also want to talk to some realtors. And I probably want to go ahead and list it on the MLS to see what happens. We might not be the right solution for them, and that's okay. We're not going to be the right solution for everybody, and actually, for the vast majority of people, we're not. And so it's okay to not be able to close that deal. But continue following up with them and have good conversations with them. This is why it's so important to keep pulling lists, keep sending out marketing, talk to more people, because for every one of these, you're going to get someone else over here that says you are the right solution for me. I do want to accept this offer. I do just want to be done. And again, what is her motivation? Well, she inherited this property. Sounds to me like, well, her motivation is get as much money as possible. She's probably going to go do that. So I believe I answered everyone's questions so far. That was fun. We should do more of these. It's always funny when I do these. I'm always worried, like, well, what if no one answered? I was not prepared for anything. I was like, well, what if no one ask any questions? So I'll give a couple more minutes. We've been live for 48 minutes already, but I'll give a couple more minutes for more questions. If you guys are out and I answer them all, then we'll wrap up. That was my plan. Cold callers, what's your turn rate average? What do you look in them, and are they overseas or in the States? So I think you're asking what's their turnover rate. The ones we have are hired from Andrea Stakes, VA company called Integria. They are all based out of the Philippines. We've never fired one or had one quit. So they're all with us since we've been with her. We've been with them for probably close to 9 months, 10 months. So yeah. Look, all I want out of my VAs is to be able to ask the seller, do you want to sell? Do you have a price? What's the occupancy? What's the condition? We'll call you back with an offer. And then I got the closers to call. Kenneth says, are you going to share the portal again that shared the status from contracts you did during the 50-50-50? The portal. I'm not familiar with what you're asking me, Kenneth. Maybe I just don't understand. But there is going to be another 50-50-50. Just to let you know. Marcus, do you scrub the national DNC? Yes. Well, it's automatically done within batch. Batch automatically scrubs everything against the federal DNC and also the known litigators list. So that's automatically done for us. I started wholesaling 3 months ago. In order to get a deal consistently, you have to have steady supply of data. Would you agree or disagree with that? Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, for us, over the past 12 months, we've skipped trace right in the range of 600,000 records. But that's to do a significant amount of volume. I think we have somewhere in the range of 60 deals under contract right now. But I would, you've been doing this for 3 months. You need to be consistently marketing, not necessarily a consistent flow of data, because for you, especially if you're solo, you could have a consistent amount of marketing within a smaller amount of data. Just in fact, with follow-ups, especially if you're having good quality conversations, like with your previous questions, that should be a follow-up that you're constantly following up with. Don't forget to do that because you're so focused on finding new and more data. The follow-up's just as important as the new stuff. You're talking about our CRM that we had. Yeah, we will. That's still the same CRM that we're using. We just removed the access for other people because it was more for people to buy the properties. Tyrone says, "What's the best market to start out in?" So Tyrone, I get asked this question all the time. I have a video on the YouTube channel about which market should I pick. For us, we're very focused on the Midwest and the Sun Belt states. That's where we feel like it's probably the easiest to get deals, but it is probably going to be lower assignment fees in those locations. But the other thing is if you're just getting started, this needs to also depend on where you're going to be able to dispo a property. Like you need to be having quality conversations with buyers and know that you're going to be able to sell the property if you go get one. That's just as important as acquisitions because the facts of the matter are you could do acquisitions anywhere in the United States, but you also need to be able to do dispositions. And I think people sometimes get so wrapped up in the importance of acquisitions that they forget about the importance of dispositions as well. How do you find the best buyers for your wholesale deals? Again, this is another video that I have on how to do virtual dispositions nationwide. One of the no. Why? She took it to get the oil change. Sorry, Cassie was freaking out because my car's gone. Right, man. Brittany took the car to get the oil change. Calm down. I'm in the middle of a live. All right. So, how do you find the best with pull list and Propelio for cash buyers? There's a whole video on how I do that. Facebook Marketplace, Facebook groups for the local areas is a great place to find buyers. Talking to local title companies and hard money lenders about who their customers are is also a great way to do it. And then also attending your local RIAs and meetups where you get to just talk to the buyers and find out. Those are some of the best places to find cash buyers. And remember, you only need one buyer per deal. So you don't need this like huge, massive list to be able to do dispositions either. When you get VAs, how often would you suggest someone new have their VAs make calls per week or spending on VAs? I don't have as much time, so I pay for help. Look, at the end of the day, VAs are not going to be as effective as you are. It's just a fact. It's like a stair step. I mean, if you hire someone to come in and work for you as an employee, they're probably going to be somewhere in the range of like 60 to 70% as effective as you are. And then if you hire a VA, they're probably only going to be like 50% as effective as those employees. So, yeah, I mean, is it a good idea because you don't have the time? Sure. You're probably not going to achieve like some massive results unless you land some great VAs or you really dive into the training for them. But yeah, it's always good to outsource, especially if you're on a time crunch. I mean, that's better than doing nothing. So, I mean, we utilize VAs for cold calling ourselves, but it's just there's going to be a level of just not as efficient as what you could do yourself or an in-house employee could do. How do you feel about doing only dispositions, like pulling only cash buyer data instead of dealing with sellers? I live in Los Angeles and acquisition sucks. So whose deals are you going to dispo? Are you going to be the key glee? Listen, I mean, I'm not Jamil. I love Jamil. I just hung out with him a couple of weeks ago. Good friend of mine. He would be the person to talk to about this. I would recommend going through Astro Flipping and understanding how to do it. It's not my business strong suit. For us, I love acquisitions. I don't think acquisition sucks because it's what we do as a business. Acquisitions is the heartbeat of our business. But if you feel like you could solve people's problems by doing dispositions, then absolutely offer that service to people. But make sure you're able to do it and make sure that you're able to perform quickly and efficiently, because that's always been my thing is anytime I JV with someone for dispositions, it's what's your level of communication? How are you updating me on what's happening with my deal? And are you successful at being able to dispo it? And if you are, then I want to bring you more deals. But if you're not, man, it's a real sour taste in my mouth. The deal is in the follow-up, but I do this full-time, and at this point, I do run out of people to call. For example, I bought a 1,000 list, and I can call that in a day, that kind of thing. Any advice on that? Well, yeah, I mean, 1,000 is, yeah, I mean, you're going to go through that pretty quickly, especially if you're just cold calling. But 1,000 is not that much. I mean, that's a pretty small list. And then again, are you just cold calling? Are you doing SMS? You got to build your pipeline, man. I mean, you got to have it coming from multiple different angles. And I get it. I mean, there might be budget constraints there. It sucks when you're first getting started, but I mean, you're talking to a guy that, I mean, early on, I went down to $11 in my bank account to just complete a deal. So I know all about the constraints of budgets and what you want to be able to do, but you got to be able to get deals done quickly, reinvest that money back in, accumulate more data so you're not running into these issues right here. Because you need to be just consistently talking to people all day, every single day. And the size of your list should not be something that's holding you back, because data is the foundation of your business. So yeah, you absolutely need to be looking into generating more data if that's all you've got, or if that's just a small sampling of what you got. Integrity sounds solid. VAs, are they pre-trained, ready to call, or do they need training? They come, she trains them. So when you decide to hire a VA from Integria, it's about a 2 to 3 week process. She sources the VA, she trains them. The only thing that you have to do is a 30-minute onboarding call where you're basically just explaining the little idiosyncrasies of your business. So, you know, we're Titanium Investments. Owners are RJ and Cassie. We've been in business for this long. These are our core values. So when they're talking to sellers, they can actually speak like they're a part of the company. But outside that, they get managed by them. And we just have an app. It's the band app where we communicate with them. And for the most part, everything is done themselves. So yeah, it's a great company. All right, guys. Well, we've hit the hour mark, and I've answered all of y'all's questions, so I think we're going to call it. This was fun, though. I think I'm definitely going to want to do more of these types of Q&As as long as you guys show up. You all have these types of questions. This is a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys got value out of it. Message has been received. Y'all definitely want a link to download the contract that I showed in the video. So I'll make sure that gets done here in the next day or so. Appreciate all you guys showing up. And tomorrow we've got Batch TV. I'll be in Washington State. We've got the Comp Queen with Cassie DeHaas tomorrow afternoon. And then I'm also dropping another video at 9 a.m. It's a 4-minute long video, but it's an epic rant of mine. It's called the Hobbit House Rant. Make sure you tune into that tomorrow morning, and we will see you then. Thank you guys so much.